We're back. Episode 110, Lyrical Ones podcast. I am Cineo, joined, as always, Affluent. How are you doing this evening?
It is a wonderful, wonderful world. It is interesting. It is wild. It is chaotic. It is peaceful. I am feeling all that, and I'm okay with it. Right? It's like fast go, slow stop, up down left right, up down down, left right, ba start. You know that type of life. I mean, it's just like when you can speak a language and then learn another language and then learn another language. It's got to build some empathy somewhere. And I think when people refuse to learn like the culture and language of other folks, right, they just being stubborn. But more than that, they just missing out on life. And I just want to encourage folks, don't miss out on life. Sydney is about to learn a whole new language this fall, and I'm excited for him to be even more multilingual than he is. Uh, on this day, July 20th, Sydney, how you living?
I am, as you say, getting ready, preparing, nesting, um, preparing for the release, the entrance, the
Ooh, debut.
the debut. Yes, the debut of a particular baby boy um, that I am. It's amazing being in this
Mm,
place where you're ready for this, and you can't see anything else. Like, and it's not to say it's like a blind ignorance, because I'm so informed and I'm so aware of risk and all the adverse challenges and hurdles, every obstacle. But I'm ready for it. I'm so ready for all of it. And as the days wear on, I just seem to feel more and more prepared, more and more ready for the task, the responsibility, and more in tune with myself and how I want to show up and how I want to be present for this person that needs me.
nice.
Um, it is a thing where, it's not to say, frustrations don't rise, like they do. Sometimes you get consumed with certain aspects of life or thoughts or feelings. Um, and as I'm reminded by my partner and my wife, you know, to pivot, right? Like I say it to others, but having that partnership, that relationship, that friendship, that camaraderie, to have that person reflect back what you often will give to others is so crucial. And so it's like today is July 20th of 2022, and there's so much going on, and to be aware of it all but not have it defeat me, not have it beat me down, to not feel as though I can't overcome any of the things in front of me. Um, it's as much a mindset, but it's also who I'm around. And thankfully, I'm surrounded by good company, such as yourself. Having Abe as a producer, having Cross, right, having Figo, having all these individuals who hold themselves in good energy, and being surrounded by that is so healing and nurturing. And it's like, shout out to Lacey, shout out to Shannon, shout out to Luna Jen, shout out to all the people who I've been able to share time with. Dez, right? Like Veronica, shout out to all these people who are ever in capturing of great positive
Village.
energy. Yes, village, community, right? Like there's so many people who I know that it's reciprocated, it's reciprocal, and it's a beautiful time. It's such a nice time. And yeah, I'm more than happy. Like keep pushing, keep forward.
Nice. It's really important, I think, to be able to recount and recall moments between people, and then how important those people are to your routine, your comings and goings, and the impact that they have just by interacting with them on a regular basis. And then as you enter into monumental projects, life changing experiences, and those folks who join you with a similar passion or positive outlook or fervor for for growth and exploration. Like, it's awesome, I think, to find that, and it's precious, you know, because so much of that lived experience and that combined lived experience then comes with you as you interact with a new feature. It's just like getting a update, patch update in your world. The a full blown human, right, with limited lived experience, but with perception and memory as it develops, and rapid growth, we see change in exponential fashion, just exponential rate, continually uh, growing at a faster rate as you feed this person and this being, and really they're impacting you as much as you're impacting them, and they're learning the way you're learning, and you develop so many different types of communication, uh, and it really reminds me, like, okay, you are welcoming someone into your culture, and then they start to contribute to that culture, uh, contribute to the language, um, inside jokes, nicknames, funny moments, scary moments, like the gamut and roller coaster of emotions, uh, all for caring for a dependent person, um, who has no choice in the matter. But you're looking forward to giving them the opportunity, the liberty to choose. And as we navigate in this country where people losing their opportunities to choose while their lives are being threatened on a regular basis, on a continual basis, um, I think it's so important to teach each other, teach ourselves how to see threats, energetical threats, where the energy's off, and respond accordingly, to escape accordingly, to identify those threats and protect yourself, protect your people, and not feel guilty about it, not feel ashamed or embarrassed, but like, this ain't for me. Actually, this is wrong on a lot of levels, and I have to jettison myself from this situation. And it's tough because we're building these habits of watching it, whether we want to or not, listening to it or hearing about it, whether we want to or not, through different media platforms. But even more so, just as we like learn about legislation as it changes and we are witness to violence against women through legislation, through policy, violence against children through policy and legislation. And it's hard to accept it and protect yourself and your family. And then it's hard to not accept it and protect yourself and your family. Uh, and so you just got to acknowledge what those threats are and learn through other people's lived experience how to protect your neck, like the Wu tells us and teaches us.
No, I mean definitely it is. It's so important for people to realize the practice of protecting your energy, protecting your neck. It's you can look at any bit of news, you can see the world around you as it evolves and changes, and how to love everyone does not mean that you love everyone the same, right? To be a loving person does not mean that you have to commit yourself to the practice of the same actions and energies
Boom.
to everyone, right? It's not that, right? I I am with a person, married to a person. That is a choice and decision that I make every day. I'm disciplined to that choice. Now, when it comes to family and friends outside of that, then it turns into, right? Are we on the same ground of understanding?
Mm,
And then are we talking to each other and communicating what is needed for our relationship? Because oftentimes you could tell a person what you need, and then you find yourself something doesn't sync up, something doesn't line up. And then you have decisions and choices that you have to make. And it's not about, it could feel harmful to someone when you remove yourself out of the equation. But if there's harm being done to you, you have to do what's necessary for yourself. It's not to create this individualized sense of like me, 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 me. It's to know when you are serving others that you're not doing it in spite of your existence. You're not doing it to minimize and reduce who you are. It's to serve those as you grow, as you learn, as you expand, your capacities grow, your limits grow, your understanding, your level of self grows within that. But if you find that it is just taken away and you come out exhausted or you feel as
mm,
though it's not appreciated, there is nothing stopping anyone from saying, I gotta remove myself, I gotta go elsewhere, I gotta create the boundaries, right? It's one thing to say I'm gonna defend what's mine and I'm gonna protect what's mine. And it's another thing to say, I'm gonna remove myself and
remove
create
yourself.
exactly the boundary, the level of proximity to just go in a different direction, to go somewhere else.
Yeah.
So many times, so many people I've seen, especially recently, are undertaking that journey of discovery when it comes to like what does the boundaries look like, what does the space look like, what is it that I need, because it is something where we can find ourselves comfortable with things that harm us only because we've become accustomed to harm.
Right.
And in the journey of growing and living, and especially when having kids, in my mind at all times, I want to be a better version of myself every day. I want to work and chip away and fine tune and refine who I am so they can see not only me at my best, but also the work that I've committed myself to in being my best. It's important for me because I remember what it meant growing up. I remember the level of stability and safety and security that it granted me when I could see that. And when I didn't see that, I remember how unshaky, unstable, insecure, and, feeling like the world was spinning at a rate that you couldn't keep up with. You couldn't maintain your own pace. And so, yeah, like protecting your neck, it's as simple as like the information that you put in. It's as simple as the amount of time you spend on your phone. It's as simple as the conversations that you get involved in.
Yep.
Where it's like some people become so consumed with what was, they don't even realize how valuable right now is, and how right now is the ever pressing moment into the future. And then it becomes this thing where you know as much as I can be considered, I guess, a realist, I'm ever present in positivity. I'm ever present in the light that I can do whatever I want. I can make whatever I want. I'm not limited by anything. I'm limited by my imagination. I'm limited by the choices and decisions that I make. That's it. And I choose to decide if I want to limit myself in those ways. I understand there's a balance, there's a harmony. Shout out to I had a chance encounter to meet the CEO of Bubble Guys, and we talked about harmony. And
Of course you did.
the way that the conversation led into harmony was about me talking about the LO family and how, there's a gesture of we're in very close proximity to Bubble Guys. And also, I'm like, hey, we should work out, right? Because as much as we enjoy this drink, we have to be mindful there's a balance between how much we enjoy this drink and how much we give to ourselves in the form of exercise, right? And I mean that it's not a diss, it's the balance, right? It's nothing wrong with indulging and enjoying, but too much of anything, right? If we work out too much and we don't rest, we can get injured, right?
Man, I was trying to get some bubble guys today, and I had already had 3 bananas, so I had to let it go.
Balance, right? You understand the investments you've made in yourself and knowing that okay, if this is what I'm choosing to do today, there's always tomorrow, right? It doesn't exclude you from the moment because you got to enjoy 3 bananas, right? But the
Oh,
mindfulness and your
that's
balance and
great.
understanding yourself, you're like, okay, you know what? I'm gonna say that for another time, right? I do the same thing. I'm very, very practical, very, very thoughtful in my input and my output, and knowing that like yeah, like 3 bananas is like this is what I tell people a lot too. I'll be like, do not juice it. Don't. If it's fruit, eat the fruit, right? Because when you compound fruit, you usually aren't gonna have 5 oranges in one sitting. But if it's in a cup, it's so much easier to process, not realizing that it's the concentrated form of something that you probably wouldn't have that much of, right? So back to the balance and harmony, right? So I had said this to the CEO, and it wasn't it's no form of this. It was just like acknowledging that there's a balance in everything that we do, right? I was like, yeah, I kind of make sure that for every cup they have, that they come spend a cup with me. And he was like, I really appreciate that because we talk about that to our team about harmony, about understanding when you look at something, there's a level of complexity in everything you see. Whether it's a person you don't agree with or you detest, there's qualities that you may not see in this person that serve a higher purpose or serve a need or serve some level of good to someone else. But because of where you sit and your perspective, you're not granting them any level of harmony to see that there may be, a piece of them that is more or greater. And I was like, yeah, it's all about that balance. It's all about finding that balance. And especially when it comes to like seeing things with a keen eye and not being so quick to react. And knowing that unfortunately there are systems and structures and forms of communication and operations and practices that as much as we change and push towards, some people refuse. And so do we say we cut them off and leave them out, or do we say okay, because this is your culture, because this is the way that you practice, I'm not saying I'm going to be 100% behind it, but if I'm going to be able to reach you, there may be things that I need to pick up on and need to learn to be able to reach you, right? And that's difficult for a lot of people to understand, right? Because
Especially when people are causing harm, it's challenging.
exactly, right? And it's not to say that everyone has to create that negotiation within themselves to say, you know what, I'm going to take it on. No, it's to know that for some, it's okay to remove yourself. And for some, this level of self-awareness to know the difference, right? To
That's right.
know when I'm doing this to engage with you. I'm not doing this to become you, right? I'm not doing this to participate in a way of I'm saying this is what I want for myself. I'm saying, okay, there's something that I need to communicate. There's something that I need to convey or express or relate to you. And the way that I have to do that, unfortunately, puts me in this place. And sometimes you find that with your family. Sometimes you find that with your elders. Sometimes you find that with someone who can be problematic and harmful in their approach. And they don't know no other way. And they may not be trying to see another way, right? But sometimes in your relationship or sometimes in your exchanges, they pick up on some of the things because as many minuscule as it is in the sense of harm, my father, he would be so brash and brazen and short and brief with people, so to the point that I would always be like, "Hey, ease up." Right? We go out, we go eat. Be like super brief with the waitress, and I'm like, "Hey, calm down, relax. We're here to eat and enjoy ourselves." Like, what is up with the hostility, the tension? Like, let it go. Like, well, I'm just saying this is what I want. I'm like, I get that, but be nice, right? And so recently, we've gone on this journey through the healthcare system, which can be aggravating for some, but I am ever consistent and present with being nice, with being polite, with asking everyone that I talk to, "How are you doing? How's your day going?" Just to get them to realize I'm not like everybody else. And I know you haven't been asked because I can hear it in your voice when you say, "How may I help you?" Right.
Right.
So I'm sitting here helping them navigate the healthcare system to get services and support, and I'm just every day being like, "Hey, how you doing? How's your day?" And then they start to ease up, and then we get access. We get traction. We move forward. We get
Right.
progress. And to like just recently, he hit me and he was like, "Yeah, I've learned to be nice from you. I've started calling people and talking to them and asking them how their day is going, and things are moving a lot smoother now." And I'm like, "Hey, right?
I mean,
As
it,
much as we could go back and forth over all the little moments where I'm like, "Hey, chill. Hey, what's up?" And I could be like, "You know what? I don't want to eat out with you no more," right? Because you're harmful to my peace and serenity eating out. Because if they spit something in my food, who I'm gonna blame? And I don't even want to get to that point, right? But I was like, you know what? I love you enough to be present, persistent, and like put you within the capacity of what I can tolerate with what I can deal with. And now it's paying off where it's enhanced his practice of communication with people, where he acknowledged the time years ago when we went to a restaurant and he remembers, and I remember too, where I called him out about it. I'm like, "Hey, chill out. Like, relax." And he brought it up in the conversation we had yesterday where he's like, "I remember that day when you told me I need to be nice." And after seeing all that we've been able to accomplish, I realized I need to do the same. I need to do it. And I'm like, years later, you hold on to it. It's been there. And there's something about that goes into your community. There's something about that goes into the exchanges when you meet someone new, right? Where I met this guy, and as much as I appreciate him taking the time out to talk to me, right? The CEO of Bubble Guys, I'm like, let's have an honest exchange and just discover where this conversation could go. And I learned something. It would enhance me. It grew in some form in what I have seen, or gave me more confirmation to let me know, okay, as frustrating as the daily grind can be, I see that there's someone in a position that I admire and respect where I can take something away to know I'm headed on the right path, right? To give me the understanding and the head nod of like, you got it. You have a level of awareness, right? Because as much as it's balance for me, it's harmony for someone else. And I think that, yeah, when you step into the arena of saying, okay, I'm committing myself to be with somebody, I'm gonna hold them down, and we're gonna grow together. Harmony, peace, balance, they're so important. And it's as simple as when you work with people, it's as simple as when you understand that sometimes the task is so immeasurable and big. And just as much as like the last conversation we had last week with Cheryl Chan, like knowing that like those moments when you feel like you've had enough, whether it's divine intervention or whether it's just family intervention or friends, your community, whatever, school, community center, after school program, therapist, whoever, however,
or when your
right?
producer say it's time to start the podcast.
Boom, right? Those moments, those interventions right? They can help enhance the balance. They can help enhance the harmony. And being open and receptive to just leaning into it to see where it goes, um, it just can lead to an infinite amount of possibilities of like greater outcomes, better outcomes. And yeah, I feel that. Protect your neck. Protect your neck at all times. Definitely I need to finish up the Wu-Tang show because yeah, LO is for the kids.
That's right. And it's really amazing to hear about parents learning from their children. Um, and I commend you for that persistence and that grace and patience to want to have a certain type of impact on your dad. And I think people sometimes think they want that with their family, even their children, and they don't envision the persistence it's going to take. They don't visualize the patience it's going to take or anticipate the frustration that's going to come and how to release and let go of that frustration and continue to try. And that's something that has to happen, with a lot of goals. And even when you get along with friends and family, it can still be a challenge to have the impact or see the change or growth that you want in an exchange and an interaction. And like I'm so grateful for that story that you could share that and articulate um, how it's changed over the years. And I love the timing that the conversation yesterday um, was you're able to share how your dad is mindful and aware of what was as he dives into what is. And yeah, I know for myself, I just actually I'm okay with things being challenging, but I'm not looking for resistance necessarily. Um, I take the lesson of the water and being in the water and being outside of the water has two different feelings. Uh, Moving the water from within and the water moving you when you're outside of it uh, can be two very challenging experiences. And a lot of times people look for the resistance or look for the work to show that they're growing. But when you swim with the water, if you try to push it with all of your force, you won't go nowhere because the space that you make will just come back in. So you have to kind of move around and through the water versus trying to move it out the way. Um, and it's all about the shapes you make and the tools you use and your mobility. And a lot of times people refuse to be mobile when interacting with people. And like you said, there's no traction, there's no movement, there's no growth, there's no progress because they choose to use a tool that they didn't inherit, but they adopted from a culture that's set up to harm them, from a culture that teaches them that they're less than, teaches them that they're not human, teaches them that they should not have basic human rights. And they adopt this language and culture of violence and harm. and struggle. And it don't have to be that way. Like you may not be comfortable, but that's because we've grown up being shown to struggle. I think I think back at every Black History Month, they teach a new generation about their ancestors who struggled. They teach a new generation about inventors and pioneers who struggled, and then they don't hear about them for the rest of the year. Folks who are triumphant don't hear about them no more. But got to be reminded every year, every government class, that at some point the country that you live in thought you was less than human, and then decided with the science that you learn that they gonna back it up with some science, and we gonna try to prove that you were less than human. It didn't take a science project for them to figure out that it wasn't true. So it was no way that the science was ever going to prove it true in the first place. But a scientific law is defined basically by a group of experts agreeing on something, right? So if a group of people, you get enough people to say, "Oh yeah, I'm an expert. I've been doing this 20 years." That ain't a human. That's about 3/5. You cool with 3/5? 3/5? Yeah, yeah, yeah. We can take this. Let's go. Let's go with that. Somebody write up a report, a hypothesis. Let's put together some observations, some data, and let's run it. Put it in the Constitution. And that's the type of language and culture that's still being taught today. People think, "Oh man, this is right because it's familiar." And like you said, it's harmful and just become familiar with that toxicity. And I really hope that people can see beyond struggle, that there is space. But I mean, they really got to want it for themselves. And I think when it comes to artists, they heard so many stories and call them success stories, uh, and history and legends and um, great triumphs of other artists who come before them struggling, and they say, "Oh well, I hear this is the way you got to do it." Say if the studio want this, then we got to show up at this time. If really, if the producer want this, then I got to do this for 'em. How else I'm gonna get this track? If the company, if the label want this, I got to get my foot in the door. You sure that's the door? You don't know what's on the other side of that door. Why you want to go through that door? Because they say you supposed. Who told you that? That you're supposed to go through that door. And right, you can say, well, the sample size of people that went through that door and came out on the other side is a large sample size. Yeah, but the folks who went through that door and didn't survive, that sample size is probably bigger. But it's not publicized. You're not talking to them. You're not celebrating they work and they struggle, La Lucha. You ain't talking to them because they like it's folks who navigating trauma and like harmful coping mechanisms and substance abuse and have a lot of healing to do because they done went through a door because somebody else went through a door that told somebody else they went through a door and then lied about their experience and and then let the label lie to them and let the director lie to them and let the executive producer lie to them. And I mean, we see it all the time in some of these relationships that people say, "Oh, well, so and so is dating now." Really? That don't look like they having a good time. They might be on a boat with some nice scenery, but I don't know if they really want to be there. I don't know how much fun they having. And I ain't, got to toss no names out there about no executive producers and no artists who maybe had an album or two, and that's it. And when they finally got away, they got married and had kids. I ain't got to talk about none of that because we ain't seen it. We know how it goes. But artists have to protect their neck, and the Wu was teaching us, and they wasn't lying. But uh, a sculptor or a painter who want to put their work on display, who want to put their stuff in a gallery. Sometimes you need advocates, and sometimes you got to learn how to advocate for yourself. But that means you got to do some research. But you also got to research the energy that's around. Research the energy that's around, what other people have been through. Oh, let's see, what about the non-successful stories? Um, you might find them people actually might be happier because they didn't go through those doors. You might find folks at peace and loving their life. Um, Remind me, I have to take a day off, a Monday off one of these days, because Bobby McFerrin is around the corner teaching a, a scatting class, like jazz scat. I know, that's what I'm saying, man. It's hurting my heart right now just saying it, but I have to take this. I have to do this. Um, Remind me, I gotta take a Monday off, um, so that I could go to this class and meet an artist who reminded me to be happy. And people say, you know, Bobby McFerrin is a one hit wonder, but that's just because they not paying attention. I saw Don't Worry Be Happy on a one hit wonder list on playlist on Spotify, and I'm like, bro, do you know what this man does in live music? You don't know that this man is the GOAT? But it's important to let the folks know, right, that impacted you. Same way you shouted out the LO fam. It's important that you let the people know who impacted you, um, how great they are. Um, I mean, I think what I'm experiencing in my life with my family, um, with my partner right now is just like new growth. Right? It's like when you when you take a branch and repot it and you see life happen. Like see healing happen, see growth, see fruit appear from patience, persistence, not perfection, but practicality, sometimes pragmatism, and just really grateful that I could see in this stage of my life some that at some point, right, I didn't think it was gonna be this way, right? Some point in my life, I didn't think there was gonna be this type of joy. Think, I was, yeah, I was thinking it was not gonna happen, right? I could say I didn't foresee a podcast, um, but in truth, anything that LO need me to do, just do it, because it's like the back of my hand. It's like hair that's growing. It's like breathing. Um, it just, if I have the oxygen, I'm gonna breathe it. I have the capacity to do with and for in the spirit of LO is is something I'm gonna work at. But LO did have to work. I mean, it's a continuous thing, right? The harmony is not effortless, right? Um, right. It's even in your conversation, right? It takes some effort and intentionality on on your part, right? And in the party you're talking to, just to have that effort to hear and hear people out. And then the effort to be vulnerable to share your own thoughts and perspective, take the little boldness. And sometimes you just got to have uh, a little carefree attitude that, what will be, will be. But I know LO's had to work at this harmony thing, had to work at this family thing, and um, there's still muscles we have to grow in creating a space that's safe for people to leave and come back and reconcile and be an example for others on how to do it healthily, how to do it properly, and be there for any artist that's got a story, um, and looking for community. I think we always want to be intentional about who we say is welcome, um, but even more so, we want to be intentional uh, about letting people know like the type of positive energy, the type of compassion and empathy, um, that we stand for, that we move with, that we work toward, and the space we want to hold for people and the space we want to take up, um, in society and in culture, that people speak a language like ours that is not rooted in harming people. It's not rooted in power or control, um, but rooted in love and grace and compassion, and really looking for the people that want to speak the same way.
I mean, it's beautiful if you look to see the beauty, if you choose to see the beauty in it. Um, because I think about, like, yeah, when it comes to having a community that shares core values, fundamentals, that shares the level of intentionality and the work that goes into that intention. Um, it's and especially like, yeah, there's a level of being aware of what's going on in the world around you and making time for it, right? Whether it's a scat class or whether it's checking in or whether it's over communicating or detailing what it is or being relentless in pursuing positivity, like there's a level of work, energy, forwardness that goes into it that it's easy to discount, it's easy to minimize because at times it can appear, if you look elsewhere, that the easy way is the way to go, right? What's
Mm.
most easiest. When I can't shake this intuition that there was a lot of work that went into me being here, from my ancestors to the ones that came before me, to the risks that were taken, to the chances that were made. Like these immeasurable value, like variables, all these different things have happened. And I'm here now as a result. And I see what's being messaged to me,
Mm.
and I know that it's off. Because when I look at what's around me, when I look at what I have access to, what I can grab and hold on to, there's something more there that is in defiance of the messaging. And I mean, I say that to everyone who may think that it's the easy way, who may think that it's just like, oh, well, that's what's been granted to me or what's been given. And in some way, it's not necessarily what's given. It's what you do in order to get. It's not to say there's anything wrong with just taking what's being given, but I've had conversations with so many people that are close to me where they struggle with who they are and what
Mm.
they do. What they do is not who they are,
That's right.
but what they do takes up so much of their time that it's further away from who they are. And the struggle, there's pain in their voice, right? They minimize it. And they what they do is they minimize it with what they get paid, right? And I'm not saying, oh, leave your job. I'm not saying that. But I know there are people who that's what they do, right? Now there's opportunities where you could push yourself and make a sacrifice here or there to challenge yourself to do things that may help you explore other avenues or other opportunities. But they keep investing more time into something that is not fulfilling, not rewarding, right? There's concessions that
Mm.
could be made, but because every luxury box is not going to be checked off, it's harder and harder to let those things go, right? And I know because I was one of those people. I was one of those people where I could afford to pacify
Mm.
who I am because there's so many aspects to who I am that I knew that I needed to be more in alignment with who I am and what I do, but I was further and further away from who I am with what I was doing. So you get things, you buy things to pacify you, to keep you doing these things that are not 100% true and genuine to who you are. You keep, like, speaking to myself and seeing these conversations that I've had, we end up convincing ourselves, right, that the numbers and then the things we can do with the numbers matter more than who we are. Now, Cheryl Chen last week brought up, did you watch Century of the Self? I've been telling people, I know it's not the most tantalizing and the most controversial in its delivery, but this documentary details how the consumerist agenda and approach has been refined over this past century to what we are now, where we are now, where there's been a conditioning, a practice that's been implemented on a psychological level where who you are is less important than what you do. When there is an alignment of the two, there is a balance, there's a harmony between the two. But as we move forward and we unconsciously just accept what is around us and what's being given to us, we get consumed with what we do that we move further and further from who we are, from who you truly are at the core, not what your ego tells you you are, right? Your
Right.
ego often convinces you based off of what you've done, not who you are when you have to be by yourself or you're just with your thoughts, when you're left to your own devices and insecurities to build off of what you are. And so when I think about, right, the community I have and the intention, right, the lessons that have been learned, the experiences that have been just expressed, that have been gone through, that have been lived, to now be in this place where we can share in a level of expertise or share in what we've been able to observe and what it's done to us, what we've been able to do from that point of what we've learned. I think about all this because, right, we're lyrical ones, right? If you're listening, if you've been on the show, right, there was something that you were saying and you kept making this reference and you were like, you go through the door, and as you enter the door, you refer to what's been done already as the reference point of action. Like they did that, so I do this. And it's like, no, they did that because that's who they are, but that's not you, right? And as you go through the doors, when do you realize these some of these doors don't serve the purpose that you thought it did, right? Like,
Aha. Aha.
right? Like, shout out to our hooker who was on here and has said, burn the door down. Because as it became a reference point more recently, right? To like remember, yeah, you got to burn the door down, right? It's not violent to say, oh, I'm burning the door down to harm. No, I'm burning the door down because this door no longer serves a purpose. It needs to go.
Or it serves a purpose and it's burning.
It serves a purpose and it's burning because the purpose that it once held, the purpose have changed. And I see that evolution. I see that ability to go beyond, to go plus ultra in those moments, to see that there is this need to enhance oneself, not in a superficial, egotistical way,
But in a
not
super saiyan way.
in a super saiyan way, right? Super saiyan. I'm a saiyan, man. I'm saying, man. So with that, it's just one of those things where, yeah, like when I think about it, man, like, yeah, burn the door down, right? Be mindful of who you are in light of what you do and the balance and the harmony between the two. Because we do live in a world where there are people who benefit more from what you do than you realizing who you are, than you realizing the value that you have beyond a monetary number, beyond some economic capitalistic viewpoint. There's nothing wrong with participating in the game of economics. There's nothing wrong with investing in the game of politics. There's nothing wrong with being in those things. But realize that you are so much more than all those systems. You're so much more than those elements, right? The elements, they make up the whole. They're not the whole, right? You can single out one thing, and yes, it does change, but still you press on, you adapt, you pivot, you learn. And yeah, I can't help but like think about that, especially when you were saying, yeah, you go through the door and you do what they did. You go through the next door, you do what they did. You keep going through these doors, realizing some of these doors are old and they're barely hanging on, or some of these doors are there to act as a superficial gate to prevent you from, rather than you experiencing the journey to go through. And so, yeah, I can't help but feel like, yeah, being intentional, being mindful, being aware of the balance of who you are, what you're doing, who are you with, where you at, and taking those Mondays off to go to scat class, because a one hit wonder is better than no hits. A song is better than it being a hit. The concept of whatever you can place as the accolade and the measurement of worth matters less in light of the expertise and what this person is offering and the skills that they're going to provide to you. So yeah, take those Mondays off.
So Bobby McFerrin also is the vocalist often on a song called Spain by Chick Corea. They performed it many times live, and it's one of the anthems of my life. Um, I was actually at the Grammys when Chick Corea won a Grammy for performing that in Madrid, Spain, and randomly met him before he went on stage to accept that award. Met him and his wife at the elevator. I'm like, ah. Um, it's like it's like one of them Beavis and Butthead, Ren and Stimpy moments when they zoom in on what's happening on the inside and everything melts, but it's like neon and strobes and tie dye and there's bubbling and smoking and all that. It was like that. It's like somebody took my heart and put it in a cauldron and lit the fire under the cauldron and then mixed it with some crazy stuff and some fireworks. And yeah, it was a great experience. Shout out to Lyrical Opposition for allowing that to happen. Shout out to Cross, my brother, for traveling with me all over the place when it was just the two of us, and uh, we was going up and down California, being ourselves and learning ourselves. Um, I will say this to your point: more people will benefit from you learning who you are than will ever benefit from what you do. And if you just learn who you are and show up as yourself, somebody's gonna be impacted everywhere you go. And if you work for 1,000 companies with 1 million co-workers, if you don't know who you are, they won't be impacted the same way as you learning exactly who you are, who you're meant to be, who you want to be, and what's your purest, most divine, most brilliant form. Your gold Frieza, your Ultra Instinct, your Super Saiyan God, your Legend, your Broly Legend form. And that idea of going beyond your limits, it does mean you have to acknowledge your limits because in that acknowledgement, you can find a beauty of stasis and being still. But there's another beauty in not fighting the limits, but surpassing those limits. But both forms are beautiful and both forms, both states matter. A lot of times people struggle against their limits and can't see the beauty in them. And I don't see my limits as ugly for myself. I don't see them as like dangerous or harmful, but I do see them as a beacon, like to surpass. Say, oh, keep going that way. Keep going toward that limit. Like when you start to feel a certain way, keep going in that direction. It flashes and calls to me in the fog of uncertainty, and I run after those beacons, not looking for comfort, but looking for what's next, looking for that feeling of let's go, going forward, progressing forward. Um, one more thing about harmony. Uh, I really like the point that you said about seeing someone you may disagree with, seeing someone who who's not living the way that you may prefer, or doesn't see things the way you see them, and then in turn not seeing what else could be happening in their life, what else could be about their beautiful about their life. Sometimes we choose to be blind to those things, but it made me think about Mercenary Tao from Dragon Ball. Mercenary Tao was a mercenary who was supposed to assassinate basically Goku, a young Goku, and he had this wild jersey and this traditional Chinese apparel. And on the back, he was very clear about who he was. And on the back of his jersey, basically, he said, "Kill you," with three exclamation marks. Like, he was very serious and sincere about who he was. But he was also rocking pink. Should have known he was dangerous then. But we don't know the story behind his choice of colors. We don't know if he sewed them on there himself, embroidered that shirt himself. But I do know, even in that limited form of animation, that was probably some type of silk he was wearing, because I think he was a successful mercenary. But his hair was shiny and looking healthy in his braid. He had a well manicured mustache, got a proper solid goatee, and he always had this like great posture. It's like Mercenary Tao was like always stood upright. He was never slouching. And yeah, you say, oh well, this dude's assassin. He killed people for money. Where's the beauty in that? Like, well, if if he don't do it, somebody else might. And in the context of the animation and the cartoon, there's a lot of, just like we was talking about Virtua Fighter 5. Virtua Fighter did it first. It's like when you're looking for 3D inspirations, you can always go back to Virtua Fighter. And Mercenary Tao and Lao Chen are the same archetype. And that's great and all, but you got to see the beauty in Mercenary Tao being there first. It's like somebody's like, we just gonna do Mercenary Tao and just like put all the extravagance of his outfit into this martial artist and put him on our fighting game. Because Mercenary Tao didn't have a hair out of place. So this guy is meticulous. And, as for me and how I operate, details are important. So I think, looking at the beauty in a character like Mercenary Tao, who may have been underdeveloped in terms of backstory, he made for a focal point for our hero, an obstacle for him to overcome, lessons for him to learn. And just like the stop sign, you may not remember the stop sign, but you may not know how many times the stop sign saved your life. You may not know how many times the speed bump slowed you down just enough to avoid an accident that happened ahead of you. And you don't go back and say thanks, speed bump, because you don't know what you missed. But sometimes the insignificant inconveniences um, put us on proper timing and alignment with our future. So yeah, just acknowledge the beauty even when things don't sit right with you.
No, definitely. Shout out to Lao Chan. Um, couldn't wait to the father of Pai Chan, famous cook, old practitioner of a
With
kung
a
fu he's trying to
mean
pass on.
with a mean roundhouse kick.
Me, super. He was so innocent. But it's so true though when you look at people who they gonna let you know who they are, right? Going back to the mercenary child, right? Says kill you on his back. People are letting you know who they are when they show up, and it's up to you to accept or have the level of perception to know what you're seeing. I mean, oftentimes we're given photos of the universe when they're not photos of the universe. They're this data information that's been conceptualized, interpreted, and what you see as an end result is not the exact image, but the data being interpreted into a digital image, right? It's not what they see. It's literally measuring light. That's it. It's measuring light. And it creates data. And then from there, it's converted into something that we can see. Now, who's to
That's right.
say that far off from what we do every day with our eyes,
That's
right?
right.
It's this electric response of things that we're sensing and we're just receiving the information. And through our perception, we can make out what is happening, what is going on, who is in front of us, what are they about. There's instinctual gut feelings that we have that sometimes we ignore, that we shouldn't ignore, because those instincts, those feelings come from survival, from thousands of years of overcoming so many horrific possibilities. But
Mm.
listening to that instinct is what helped us survive. It's our ability to be in tune with the infinite, right? That intuition is us having a different level of communication and channeling the energy around us to know how to respond to what the information is. People will show you who they are. Now, we do live at a time where there are people who benefit from us not listening to our intuition. Oh man, I want to eat that next piece of pizza. You know what? I'm going for it.
Mm.
I shouldn't. I know I don't need to. I know this is too much. Oh, you know what? I know I shouldn't go out this weekend. I have a feeling, but I'm gonna do it anyway.
Mm.
Oh, I know XYZ, but I'm gonna do ABC. There's so many different levels, and there are people who they love to benefit from our emotional, irrational behavior outside of our instinct and intuition, because people will show up and they will tell you who they are. Lao Chan is known as a very violent figure and virtual fighter. There is no mistaking that he shares a resemblance in Mercenary Tao, as Lao Chan does not get along with his daughter. There's a whole anime called Virtual Fighter where Lao Chan is trying to get his daughter back in the most violent of ways, and Pai Chan is not with it at all. It's not by mistake. A person shows up and they show you who they are. It's up to you. It's not always in what they wear and how they posture. Sometimes it's in the subtle moments. Those
The
subtleties.
mustache
Yeah, it might be the
or the
mustache
goat or the ponytail.
or the ponytail. Be mindful, right? It's in the subtleties. You got to be perceptive to read between the lines and trust your instinct and listen to your gut, because it's gonna guide you. And I just yeah. With that being said, Alfluent, do you have any final thoughts or words for the people of episode 110 of the Lyrical Ones podcast?
110. Uh, Newsflash. We switching it up. We're gonna record. We're gonna broadcast on IG soon. What month is it? Coming in August. Coming in August, you'll be able to find us on Instagram Live. So stay tuned. I might switch up the background. I might switch up my glasses. I might even do something with my beard. Comb your beard. But I might even wear a juggernaut helmet. You never know. But even if you never venture down the rabbit hole that is YouTube, even if you never heard of Judgment Day, even if you never seen an X-Men uh, cartoon voiceover on YouTube, uh, we will be switching it up, and I hope that y'all join us as we transition, and uh, I'm gonna spend as much time as I can thanking my producer Abe for holding me down and reminding me to start the podcast and in the most polite West African way. I'm ready when you are, and I'm just glad to be here. I just got full, it's just like I have really emotional days. Like all of them are emotional, and and I'm okay with that. I be feeling a lot of stuff all the time, and I'm very much okay with it. This it's a good life, and if I'm sad every day, I will still have a wonderful life.
We all feeling it. We all feeling it. We all, and that's the thing, right? It just saying it out loud, giving that acknowledgement gives so many people the ability to have to acknowledge it with themselves. You not alone.
Nah,
My goodness. Shout out to My Way Entertainment. Charles, I'm your brother. But we not gonna say what we want to say, even though it's the juggernaut.
that's right.
Well, after as we do, I wish I had they had a Ghostbusters one. They
They did
had
a
a Ghost.
did a Power Rangers one.
Charles,
I hit you with Charles.
I hit you with Charles.
Mustard. This ketchup. Mustard. This ketchup. Mustard. This ketchup. Zap your dumb ass. Zap your dumb ass. Zap your dumb ass. This is a Dodge. Mustard. This ketchup. Mustard. This ketchup. Mustard. This ketchup. Zap your dumb ass. Zap your dumb ass. Zap your dumb ass. This is a Dodge. Comb your beard. Comb your beard. Not as long as I'm wearing these Jamaican colors. Not as long as I'm wearing these Jamaican colors. Once, once, opposition. Once, 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 opposition.
Charles,